Hello and welcome to Dr. Bingo Fairmont's Management Minute. Dr. Fairmont is taking his prized pet bearded dragon to the vet today.
Wow.
So Dr. Russell Clayton and I, Dr. Adam Shoemaker, are here to represent, coming to you from St. Leo University's Donald R. Tapia School of Business in the recording studio. How are you doing, Russell?
I'm good, Shu. So a pet bearded dragon.
It's very exotic.
That is. I'm not that exotic. Now, I'm a dog person. What about you? Are you a dog person? A cat person?
I mean, I have cats. I've always had cats. I like dogs.
Okay.
I like OPD, other people's dogs.
Oh, you're down with OPD. I get it.
I don't have, we don't have the lifestyle that, for a dog. I would feel bad leaving a dog home all day. Cats, they don't care.
Yep, they just hang out.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yep.
Now, do you ever bring your cats to work?
I never bring the cats to work. I guess I could, but I don't think they'd like it. I think they'd be happier where they are.
Okay. Do you ever bring your kids to work?
I do. Not always, not often, but I have had to do that when one of them was sick. Couldn't stay home by herself, obviously. And have you ever done that?
If I bring my daughters to work, it's usually because they just want to come eat all the food in the cafeteria.
Right, we do that too.
But I don't consider that at work.
Right.
That's more just a treat for them, and then usually my wife takes them back home or takes them to the playground or something, and then I go back to work.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, that really feeds into today's topic, which is actually two different things, which is pets and kids in the workplace. And when we talk about pets, I mean, you asked me about my cats, but let's be honest, I don't think people actually bring cats, bearded dragons, fish so much to work.
I've never seen it.
More dogs, really more dogs than anything. So, and apparently there's some good benefits to allowing employees to bring their dogs,
such as
to work. Yeah, I read a study from VCU Medical School, and they had found that there's actually there's lower self-reports of stress.
Okay.
People say they're less stressed. Whether they are or not is one thing, but you say they are.
What they say.
There's more organizational commitment. And there's more social interaction with other coworkers because, there's your dog, I have a dog, isn't that cute? And maybe you meet people that you would never have met otherwise. So there's definitely good reasons to do it. Now, let them bring the pets to work.
So yeah, a lot of upside there. Is there any downside?
I think there's a lot of downside.
Okay, talk to me about that.
I'm a dog person. I like dogs.
Right.
But I know that dogs are a lot of trouble, a lot of responsibility
they
too.
are.
Right? So lots of things could happen in the workplace. The dog could be dirty, right? Get something dirty. He's not friendly. He doesn't get along with your coworkers or other people's dogs.
Right.
Which is a problem. Everybody thinks their dog is the best dog in the world. You probably think that about little Tootsie, or what's your dog's name?
His name is Charlie, and you would be surprised.
Some days yes, some days no.
Sometimes not so much.
I hear that, right? But God forbid, what if the dog bites somebody? Or it's scared? You have somebody who's scared of dogs, and you have a big dog, and they don't want to be around it. I mean, everybody has rights in the workplace.
Right, and on one hand, it's a liability for the workplace.
Absolutely,
but on the most basic level, as what you're alluding to, is it just a nuisance for coworkers?
That's it. I mean, dogs are great, but lots of things are great. You don't do them at work. Right?
Right.
So if you're going to have a policy allowing people to bring their pets or their dogs, probably, make a formal policy, and that can allow or it can prohibit whether they're allowed to bring their dogs to work. And it should probably talk about things like when can they bring their pet to work and how often can they bring their pet to work. And probably if you know it's a day when you're going to be in and out of meetings or you have to go on site, probably don't want to have people bringing their pets on that day.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Also, what are the rules for when individual pets should be asked not to come back, right? If it's not very friendly, or it doesn't get along with the other dogs, or it keeps running and getting into the trash, or whatever it is, how can you decide when?
Some ground rules.
Right, when it's the last straw, strike three for that pet, right? And then if there is a need for complaints, if other employees, I don't really like dogs, or this dog keeps sniffing me and I don't like it, how can they make a complaint, right? So that you're not creating animosity between that person and the owner of the dog, right? Who may otherwise get along. And the other thing to think about is if you don't own your site, which most businesses don't, does the landlord say it's okay for pets to come on site?
That's a good point because, pets can do a lot of things, especially if they're in a new place and they're marking their territory. Now all of a sudden the landlord has a little bit of TT on their carpet. That's not a good thing.
Absolutely, right. They don't want that for sure. You're going to lose your deposit. And the other thing is, if you're going to have a policy, it's got to address liability. So who's responsible if your pet gets hurt right?
Yeah.
Eats something bad out of the garbage can, finds something on the floor, gets hit by a car, God forbid, right?
Right.
Or if the pet hurts somebody else or somebody else's property. Your dog ate my report. That's not a good situation to be in. So you got to make sure everybody knows who's responsible for the dog and any consequences that come to the dog or that the dog's responsible for.
That makes sense. Now, on a same but wildly different note, what about kids?
Strikingly similar, but also strikingly different.
Tell me about, kids coming to work, because that's something we see more often. Is like you mentioned, maybe bringing a child who's sick,
right?
Or bringing a child who, maybe for a couple hours you don't have childcare lined up,
right?
I feel that's more common in our world.
And there's bring your kid to work day, right? So it's encouraged now to bring the kids to work. And you know what? I read some research about the pets, but I didn't see a whole lot of research that says, hey, coming to work is really good for your kids.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure, other than if you don't have childcare or your schedule is going to be impacted, of course you have to bring them to work. I don't know that there's a lot of real benefit to it.
Okay.
And I know that the very famous case.
For the work side.
For the work side.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, for the work side. Very famous case, and you are familiar, I know you're a baseball fan, and you're familiar with Adam LaRoche, who used to play for the White Sox, right? And he and his son Drake, and he wanted to bring his son Drake to practices all the time and warm-ups and games. And he had an agreement with his manager that he could do this. And then it was asked to he said, the manager said, you need to scale it back. Drake's here too much. And LaRoche actually quit the team and walked away from a $13 million contract, he said, rather than sacrifice his son coming to practice and being part of the team.
Right. And I think you bring up a good point with that story about Adam LaRoche, which is, first of all, on one hand, having policies, which I know you're going to talk about in a minute.
I love some policies.
I know you do. But on the other hand, is from the individual standpoint, from the worker standpoint, how important is it for you to bring your pet or bring your kids to work?
Right.
Know what you're willing to sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice? Certainly none of us are going to sacrifice $13 million contracts unless you're getting paid a lot more than I am. But right now I'm not ready to quit my job. So that I can bring my kids to work. We need the income.
Right. I understand. And for the most part, hopefully you're making more than your child care is costing.
Exactly.
Not everybody is. So surprisingly, though, the idea for kids is not that different from what you should do for pets. And that is you need some kind of policy, either to allow people to do it or prohibit people from doing it. And it should talk about when can the kids come and how often and how old should the kid be. And it should think about, is this going to affect your productivity and your ability to get your job done? One of the thought papers I read about this said maybe kids should be given a special area where they can hang out. But that creates liability too, because there's not a lot of supervision, right? Who's watching the kids? What happens if something breaks? What happens if the kids get hurt and nobody sees it happen? What's going to happen then? And of course, liability for anything, right? If the kid gets injured or if the kid injures or breaks somebody or something else.
You bring up a good point about on-site child care. That used to be a really hot topic. If we were doing this podcast 7 years ago, we would have been doing an episode on that. Research tells us that on-site child care really didn't do much benefit for the workers.
It's expensive. It's really expensive. And ultimately, at the end of the day, are you just better off as an employer? Is it cheaper and easier to say, hey, listen, if you need to take a day and work from home, take care of your kid or take care of your pet or whatever, do that rather than bring him into the office?
Right. So, Dr. Fairmont is out with his pet bearded dragon. If he were here, I think there's a few takeaways that he would want us to give the listener. One is, I think, that word that you kept mentioning, policy. If you're the employer, you're the business owner, you're the manager, have a policy about when pets and or kids are welcome. When are they not welcome? And I think the key that Dr. Fairmont would mention is fairness. Be equitable. You treat everyone fairly.
Exactly.
Don't
the boss's kids or the boss's pet don't get a break that nobody else gets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think he would also tell us, as you said, consider liability, because there is a lot of liability issues that are way beyond the scope of this podcast. But there could be some serious implications. You may even run it by legal counsel in terms of policy.
Definitely.
And I think one tip that he would give the individual workers that may be listening is simply remember that these are benefits that can be taken away. These are privileges. They're not rights.
That's true. And as more employers offer more things to attract great employees and keep great employees, you got to remember, if you mistreat this kind of program, the boss has the right to say, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. It's too much trouble.
It is not a federal law that pets must be able to come to work.
It is true.
This is something that can be taken away.
Yep.
So I think that's what he would tell us.
I think you're right. Well, we're going to sign off, and our next topic is going to be making that transition from college to the first job. We encourage you to look at us on social media. Our website is managementminutepodcast.wordpress.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Bingo Fairmont, and our Facebook page, Dr. Bingo Fairmont's Management Minute, and our email is bingofairmont@gmail.com. So hopefully you'll write to us, follow us, make some comments, take a look at us, and ask us some questions. We'd love to talk about your proposed topic.
We want to hear from you.
Yes, so thanks to the St. Leo University, Donald R. Tapia School of Business. Our intro and outro music comes to us from bensound.com. And of course, we want to thank our engineer and researcher, Sean the Soundman Gibbons.
Thank you, Sean.
And if you see Dr. Fairmont and his bearded dragon, tell him we're looking for him.